What's up guys, welcome to this review of Jessica Jones Season 3, the final season. This season sees Jessica reeling from the death of her mother in the end of the last season, teaming up with Trish to take on a serial killer. So what did I think of this overall? I thought this was good. It's the final season, it wraps things up pretty nicely, there's enough closure in there that you don't feel disappointed that this is the end. Of course, it was never meant to be the end though, so that is the sad part. The story, like I said, it's about a serial killer. It's much more grounded than in some of the previous seasons and previous Netflix Marvel shows. 13 episodes though, still too many episodes. You could easily divide this into chunks. The first 3 episodes are about wrapping up the loose ends and story threads of season 2. Then you got the main central chunk, which is all about the serial killer. Then you got the 2-part finale, which wraps everything up. The problem is that the first 3 episodes are a little on the slow side, and there are some story threads throughout the whole season that don't necessarily need to be there. You could easily have trimmed 3 episodes away from this, had a good, solid 10-episode season. But like I said, this is a good season, I think, overall. I think it's better than Season 2 by quite a bit, because Season 2 was disappointing, but it's not as good as Season 1. This season is filled with lots of twists and turns. There's a lot of surprising, shocking, revelatory moments, particularly as the season progresses. Once you're in episode 2 and 3 and you find out what this season's about, that it is this big murder mystery, it becomes really compelling, really interesting. That's mainly because the villain is brilliant, and I'll get to that in a minute. And while the main storyline is this murder mystery, there's also the storyline about vigilantism, heroes, right and wrong, ethics and morality. It really delves into that. It's reminiscent a bit of Daredevil Season 2 with Daredevil versus the Punisher. It's like, how far should you go? How far can you go? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? Should you stick to the law strictly by the book? Because you have these powers, should you limit yourself? Should you actually embrace what you are fully? In which case, at what point do you become the villain? And I'm not going to get into spoilers at all just yet, but it really does a good job of exploring this. But like I said, there are too many episodes, and the side stories don't always feel necessary. Hogarth, for example, the character played by Carrie-Anne Moss, her storyline, really not necessary for the most part. Yes, she's got ALS, it's very sad and emotional, but it feels like she's being forced into so many of these episodes because she's one of the main cast members. The first half of the season, for example, she does nothing really except rekindling with an old girlfriend, and it's really boring and not all that interesting. Yes, it pays off pretty nicely towards the end, but there was no need for her to have that much attention that early on. It's not until she actually gets connected to the main ongoing storyline where her storyline actually starts to feel a bit more important and a bit more interesting. And while I said there's lots of twists and turns and surprises and shocking moments and revelations, maybe there's a few too many, because this is 13 episodes. It feels like they are dragging things out a little, and they are constantly giving you these, oh, no, it's not this, it's, oh, no, here's something that's going to twist things again. It feels like they're constantly just trying to take the story longer, make it bigger, longer, just for the sake of filling out the 13 episodes. And that's a little on the disappointing side. Because at the end of the day, it keeps building up, only to then go, nope, it's still building up. But the payoff in the end is good. The final 2 or 3 episodes are really good. There are also a couple of episodes which take the attention away from Jessica Jones this season. Jessica Jones, not necessarily the main character all the time. There are 2 episodes, for example, that focus entirely on Trish, both of which show you what she's up to during the events of this season when she's not been on screen. And they're interesting episodes to say the least. I'm not going to go into spoilers about that just yet. But to talk about the characters, the main character, of course, is Jessica Jones. Krysten Ritter, great as always. She's a really interesting and really relatable character, despite the fact that she's an alcoholic, despite the fact that she's probably got some sort of depression. She's really dealing with loss and grief, and she's trying to come to terms with what she is and what she should be or what she wants to be. It really delves into her and just trying to figure out what her place in the world is and what she's good at, what she's supposed to do. It does a good job of exploring all that, and Krysten Ritter does a good job of portraying it as well. As for Patsy, or Trish, whatever you want to call her, This is just as much her show now as it is Jessica Jones's. So maybe you don't like her character. Well, you might not like this season, but I do think this is her best season. This is her best work as well. They've made her character far more pivotal, far more interesting and engaging this season than she ever has been before, and it works really, really well. The main reason for that is because she's now playing a really active role in the central storyline. She's essentially teaming up with Jessica Jones to take on this serial killer. Whereas in past seasons, she was kind of just there, going in and out. She had her own things going on the side as well. So the fact that she is much more integral to the main storyline works much better in her, for her. It's also a really emotional season for her character, and the actress, whose name I think is Rachel Taylor, she does a good job of conveying all of that. Her character is one of the more conflicted ones this season. She's the one she's often being judged because of the events of season 2. She deals with the emotional side of things a lot. It's a really good performance. Then you got Carrie-Anne Moss. Got no qualms with the performance at all. I just wish she wasn't quite around so much. I just wish that her storyline was a bit more interesting. Then you've got the main villain, Gregory Salinger. Brilliant, really good. Played by Jeremy Bobb, I think his name is. I've seen him in a few things before. This is his best performance to date. He's almost a mix between Dexter, in the TV show Dexter, and Hannibal Lecter, merged into one. He's a serial killer. He's got reasons behind why he kills people. Really scary, really intimidating, and ominous and mysterious and threatening as well. And one of the things that really works about him is that he manages to get all this across. He becomes intimidating, scary, and threatening to Jessica Jones, who has these superpowers, and yet he's just a normal human. He doesn't have powers. Yes, he's highly intelligent. Yes, he's very capable because he's got all these accolades and awards to his name and so on. But he is just, at the end of the day, a normal bloke, and he looks like a normal bloke as well. So, really compelling, really interesting villain, and I like the horror elements that are introduced with him as the season progresses, that he is a threatening, scary individual. Is he as good as David Tennant's Kilgrave? No, but few villains are. But this is a really good runner-up. But there are a couple of new side characters in here. One called Eric, who I think is a really good addition to this. He's almost a love interest for Jessica Jones, but he also has a big role to play in the main ongoing storyline. He's not just there as a romantic interest. And yeah, some of the stuff he comes in and does has you scratching your head and rolling your eyes a little bit, but they do make sense of it all. It doesn't feel too out there. But yeah, a very welcome addition to the cast. Overall, though, the cast and the characters are all really well acted. It's a really well written show for the most part. A few too many episodes, though. But in terms of the production, cinematography is gorgeous. It's set in and around New York. Lots of, you know what the city looks like now, surely. So really good looking vistas and environments. Does a good job of setting up a noir, dark feel and look throughout the show. The tone is great. The lighting is gorgeous. The fact that it is dark, the fact that there is dark lighting in there, it really does a good job of setting the mood and the tone of the show. I also want to praise the score. The score is really good. It sets the tone and the mood really well. It amps up when there's action. It feels really ominous and mysterious. At suitable points, it is noirish. So yeah, I like that as well. And I've talked about how many episodes there should have been and so on. But that's what I thought of Jessica Jones Season 3, the final season. I think as a final season, it's a good one. It's better than Season 2. It's not as good as Season 1, but it's a damn good show and I had a lot of fun and I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I do recommend it, especially if you've kind of gone off these Marvel Netflix shows. This one's a good one to pick up. So yeah, that's what I thought. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought. And of course, give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. But most importantly, subscribe to my channel. That means a lot to me. So please subscribe. Please. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton if you want. But that's not the end of this yet, because now I'm going into spoilers. So if you haven't seen this season, or if you just don't care, you can go away now. I don't mind. Come back later, watch the rest of this, because full spoilers. So one of my favourite scenes in this whole season was a scene in which Jessica confronts Gregory Salinger and they have a wrestling match of sorts, and Jessica just owns him. It's a brilliant scene, really powerful, really emotional. In fact, that Jessica walks away, and it's one of the few moments in the whole season where she actually looks happy. She smiles, Really good scene, great performance by both the individuals there, Kristen Ritter and Jeremy Bobb. And yeah, I just love that scene. So I thought I'd give that a shout out. One of the things I haven't mentioned yet is that throughout the season, it's very much a chess match this season. It's not a superhero taking down a supervillain. They're constantly battling each other out. It's a battle of the wits, battle of the minds for the most part between Jessica and the serial killer. And it really does a good job of amping up the tension and the pressure throughout the season. They're constantly trying to one up each other. Jessica's constantly trying to catch him and just get evidence against him because we all know he's guilty for most of this season. So it's all about trying to catch him in the act, trying to get something that can actually get him down with. So if you've seen season 2, you know that at the end of season 2, Patsy, or Trish, gets superpowers, and her powers are a little underwhelming. Yeah, she's basically got cat-like reflexes. She can land on her feet, she can fall from great heights, she can also see in the dark. They do a good job of showing these powers in there, but yeah, not the most interesting the powers they could have gave her. She can all of a sudden fight very well as well, but yeah, the show does a good job of delving into her character this season. It shows, and because she's got these powers, she's now trying to become a hero. She's trying to help Jessica take down the bad guys. And as the season progresses, one of the things that's conflicting with her is just how far should they go. And again, this delves into similar territory to Daredevil and the Punisher, which was really interesting. It's interesting though that they never mentioned Daredevil or the Punisher, despite the fact that Jessica knows Daredevil and she's an intelligent person. She probably keeps up with the news. She probably knows about the Punisher. So interesting how no one brings him up in this either. But despite the fact that she's got these powers, they do a good job of still making her character grounded and believable and relatable. And the big spoiler, of course, is that the serial killer Jeremy Bobb, not the only villain of this season. Hell, not even the main villain of this season, really, because Trish is the main villain. Now, she plays a character called Hellcat. So, Hellcat, not a Marvel character I'm familiar with, but she's usually depicted as a superhero, not a villain. At least, I believe that's the case. So, really interesting how they made it a villain this season. So, I thought her transition from being the person who wants to be a hero to being a vigilante hero to then becoming a villain was really well done, well paced, just great and interesting. It constantly delves into the right and wrong of vigilanteism. What should you do? What's wrong? How far should you go? I really think it does a good job of that, the ethics and morals behind it all. And of course, there's a lot of for interpretation by the end of the season. While I think she is a villain, you could totally view this as no, she's actually a hero and she's just misunderstood, or people just aren't getting her side of the argument. There's a total like she's a hero, she's a villain contrast there, and it's up for you to decide which she is. And at the same time, you've got Hogarth in there, who's also skirting the line between being good and bad. Although I think she's mostly bad. She's very selfish, very greedy. That's you can't deny that. So throughout this season, she's constantly following the law, doing what the law states is right, even though she's defending bad people, people who have broke the law, who are blatantly bad people. So does that make her a bad person if she's just kind of doing her job, if she's following the law? It's up for interpretation again, so I like that. But to talk about the new character this season, Eric. He is a character from the comic books, again, not one I'm familiar with. In the comic books, I believe he's got a telepathic abilities. He can read people's minds or something like that. Here, it's a little different in that he can actually just tell when someone's guilty or, well, when they're good or bad people, because if they're bad people, he gets headaches around them. So bad headaches, depending on who they are, that he ends up bleeding through his eyes and nose and all sorts. So it's interesting, if a little cheesy, a little silly, and yeah, that won't be for everyone, but they do ground it pretty well. He does kind of show up at the most opportune times, and his powers do feel very convenient for Jessica Jones and everyone else around there, because hey, you need to figure out if this person's bad, just bring him in. Yeah, really convenient. We also find out a little about his backstory and his origins. Really interesting, the story about his parents and how his dad and so on was not a nice person and stuff like that. Really interesting, really powerful. I like the performance from the actor as well. And just a little side note, he would be a great Nathan Drake for an Uncharted film, I think. But that's it, Jessica Jones Season 3, the final season. It's sad that it's over, but it does end well, I think. It's just a shame that it feels like there should be a bit more story going on. There's clearly more stories to be told with these characters. Hopefully someday this iteration of the character will get more stories told, but maybe not. But that's all I've got for now. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I enjoyed Jessica Jones Season 3 quite a bit. It's not great by any means, but it's good. There are a couple of episodes here and there that aren't quite that good. But hey, it can't be perfect. So, if you've liked this again, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, yada yada yada. Thanks for watching.